What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Cricket Icon 4 and the Samsung Galaxy A03s. Now before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Cricket Icon 4, we're getting a 6.5-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. With the Samsung Galaxy A03s, we're getting a 6.5-inch PLS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So in general, for being really entry-level phones, these displays are pretty decent, but I would say overall, despite them having pretty much the exact same specs, I feel like the Samsung Galaxy A03s looks a little bit better. The colors look nicer, it's a little bit brighter, and the viewing angles are a tiny bit better too. So if you're going to be consuming a lot of content and you're just going to be on your phone a little bit more, then you might want to go with the A03s. But in general, there's not really a significant difference. So for really entry-level phones like this, you're probably going to be fine either way. For storage, both phones are getting 32GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so no real difference here. Just keep in mind, 32GB is really not that much storage. So if you're constantly downloading apps and stuff like that, the storage will fill up pretty quickly on these phones. And if that's really the case, even with the microSD card expansion, you're still probably going to want to get something else. For security features, both phones do have face unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners as well. With the Cricket Icon 4, it's right here on the back, and with the Samsung Galaxy A03s, it's right here on the power key. But starting with the Cricket Icon 4, let's go ahead and give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung Galaxy A03s. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And of course, if you want to use Face Unlock instead, you always can. For the cameras, both phones have 5-megapixel water drop notch front facing cameras. Then on the back, with the Cricket Icon 4, we got a single 13-megapixel rear camera. And with the Samsung Galaxy A03s, we got a 13-megapixel main camera, a 2-megapixel macro camera, and a 2-megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, when it comes to the camera, as you could clearly see, I would definitely say the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a huge advantage here. First of all, this phone does have a macro camera and a depth sensing camera, and this is going to help with portrait mode. Whereas with the Cricket Icon 4, this phone doesn't have a macro camera, and even though it does technically have portrait mode, with such a low-end camera and no depth sensing camera, it's really not going to be that good. In addition to this, the photo quality with the A03s is just a lot better, so if you want a camera that's actually usable, I would definitely go with the Samsung Galaxy A03s. But if you're maybe just using Snapchat or scanning a barcode here and there, the Cricket Icon 4 will at least get the job done, but honestly, the camera here is not really good enough for a whole lot else. Now, as far as RAM and processor go, with the Cricket Icon 4, we're getting 3GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio A22 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A03s, we're getting 3GB of RAM as well with the MediaTek Helio P35. In general, when it comes to performance, neither phone is particularly fast, but for an entry-level phone, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A03s is at least pretty good. So if you're going to be on your phone a little bit more, still doing more basic activities like web browsing and social media, because keep in mind, neither of these phones can handle a whole lot else. But again, if you are going to be using your phone a little bit more, I would definitely recommend the A03s, because at least compared to the Cricket Icon 4, the A03s is significantly faster. That being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones, and here are the scores I got. So as you can see here, again, the Samsung Galaxy A03s is significantly faster. Sure, on one hand, you're still not going to be doing a whole lot with this phone, because keep in mind, it is a really low-end phone, so it isn't really fast in and of itself, but it's definitely not as slow as the Cricket Icon 4. So in general, if you do care about performance, and you are going to be using your phone a little bit more, then keep in mind you are going to have a better experience with the A03s. For the batteries, with the Cricket Icon 4, we're getting a 4000 mAh battery that supports 10W fast charging, and with the A03s, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 15W fast charging. So in general, neither phone has a bad battery, but if you really want a phone with a good battery, the A03s will have an advantage here because a 5000 mAh battery is quite a bit bigger than a 4000 mAh battery. In addition to this, although a 5W difference in fast charging isn't really going to make that much of a difference, with the Samsung Galaxy A03s, the charging speeds might be a little bit better. Now, another interesting thing to keep in mind here, and is probably the one advantage the Cricket Icon 4 actually has, is that this phone does have NFC, whereas the Samsung Galaxy A03s doesn't. So if you like to use tap and pay, the Cricket Icon 4 might actually be a better choice. Now, this is definitely interesting to see, because until this phone, I've never actually seen a phone this inexpensive that actually has NFC. So in general, that's definitely a nice thing to see, and I really hope we start to see more phones in this price range get this feature in the future. But in conclusion, Which of these phones is better? In general, I feel like in pretty much every way, the Samsung Galaxy A03s is definitely a better device. Even though they have, again, pretty much the exact same display specs, I feel like the A03s just looks a lot better. And if you're going to be watching videos, for example, I feel like it's going to look a lot better with the A03s. The camera with the A03s is also significantly better. Sure, it's still not the best camera out there, but again, if you're trying to take pictures that are actually usable, keep in mind, compared to the Cricut Icon 3, the A03s is still going to be a lot better. And again, it has a macro camera and a depth sensing camera, whereas the Cricut Icon 4 only has a single camera setup, and honestly, the quality isn't really that good. In addition to this, the performance is a lot better with the A03s, and it has a much larger battery as well. But that being said, if you're not too concerned about the camera, the features, or the performance, and you just want a super low-end phone, but you do want to use tap and pay, then for that one reason alone, that's where the Cricut Icon 4 might actually be a better choice. But otherwise, for an entry-level phone, I do think the Samsung Galaxy A03s is quite a bit better, and for most people looking for a phone in this price range, this will be the way to go. But this concludes my comparison between the Cricut Icon 4 and the Samsung Galaxy A03s. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Khalipas Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.